Uh, okay. Um, I was walking by the original kitchen one time. This is in about 1978. And I looked through the window into into the interior of the original kitchen, and I saw the back of someone's head, and the words came through my mind, that man is stopped. That man is not going anywhere. That man is not doing anything. And I thought, wow, who is that? I just saw the back of his head. That man is not going anywhere. That man is not doing anything. That man is stopped. And so I went around in through this door of the original kitchen, came around the corner, and it was Adi Irani. So in spite of her, we're projecting, movement and everything on him, and he's not going anywhere. That's just, I was very surprised. But and on his birthday, I mean, he's probably still not moving at all. Not anyway. So tonight, the topic was something like persistent sanskaras or persistent weaknesses. And someone had asked me, how did you think of such a variety of stubborn weaknesses that the Baba lovers have to face? And my answer is I'm guilty of all of them in varying degrees myself. So it's quite easy. I just went through my own stuff, and it turns out that, a lot of other people deal with these things in one form or another. And in fact, finding something that was persistent, the one that was most persistent, I thought that was a little harder to discover. But I realize, tonight that it's not easy just to kind of traipse out your weaknesses in front of a lot of other people. But we've all, I find this audience is very empathetic, very understanding and mature enough because they've seen plenty of weaknesses in themselves. And Eric would say, none of us can hold our head too high. you know. So some of you may have weaknesses that continue and you've never been able to rise above them. And or you may have had weaknesses and you've got some breakthrough on your weaknesses through Baba's intervention. That would be very interesting to hear. And but I'm just going to mention one thing. When I was young, in the early years going to India, and I'm kind of immature, and Mara's talking about going up Seclusion Hill, and she had a fear of heights, so that when she got up on the top, she had to crawl on her knees. Now, normally, if I had that problem, I'd think, boy, I got to do, I maybe should take some outward bound program or something and get over my fear of heights. But she had no problem with it. You know what I mean? It was clear that that didn't bother her. She had a weakness, but she could live with it without the least concern. So that's another way of getting beyond weaknesses. You just don't. It's like like a lack of coordination in a particular sport. Oh, wait, here's what though. Before we begin, um, I would like someone to read out, because not everybody gets the letter I sent out. Let's see. Let's see if we can have Bob Yeager read this. Are you able to see this well enough, Bob?
Uh, yes, I think so.
I mean, just
I have a printed copy of it. I think I can probably see that a little bit better.
okay.
Uh, Dear folks of Baba, many guests who come to the center here in Myrtle Beach from places where there are no other Baba lovers are surprised to hear from other guests that they share many of the same persistent problems. They are even relieved sometimes to learn that they are not the only ones seemingly singled out by the universe to struggle with particular issues. Is there some area of your life in which you feel stuck, no matter how or what you've tried to change it? Most of us have had to face in ourselves some complex that seems to persist in spite of all our efforts to eradicate it. And this in spite of giving the complex to Baba repeatedly. Are there examples of these issues that you have experienced? And have you had any breakthroughs that have finally freed you from such complexes? It might be something you're fully aware of as an obstacle, something you know needs fixing, or maybe it is so subtle that it's hard to pinpoint, even though you may have your suspicions. Here are some examples of persistent complexes that can last for decades. Do you find that you're often annoyed at the slightest thing someone does? It might even be one person that you're routinely critical of. Or you find that you're never able to live up to your ideals. No matter how hard you try, it feels like you're never enough. Do you have a fear of public speaking that has dogged you your whole life and it never seems to get better? Do you get irritated in general, maybe impatient, when you think others are not living up to your standards? Do you frequently procrastinate, putting off things that need to be done, and they have to force yourself to carry out your responsibilities? Do you find that you never have enough time to catch up with a backlog of things to do, a frequent feeling of overload? You have too many projects ongoing, but none fully completed. Have you gotten in the habit of adding on projects without quite wrapping up old ones? Are you an easy touch? Do you have trouble saying no? You find that people take advantage of you, and so you keep a distance from others. Do you often feel inferior around others, inadequate, or come away feeling that you might be unlikable? Do you often react adversely when you're around authority figures, especially when they pull rank on you, or you don't feel they are very loving? Do you frequently regret what you have said when talking to others and later find yourself reliving the conversations? Do you have difficulty in trusting others, believing that they are not really honest with how they express their feelings toward you, or you feel that they don't have your best interests at heart? Do you find that your place is always a mess, even after asking Baba repeatedly for help? Do you just chalk it up to your own personal style, no longer trying to do anything to change your habits? Any success stories after decades of struggle with some persistent complex? How did you finally rise above it? Or maybe you've just learned to live with your complex or issue and not pay it much mind, like being good at certain sports. Is it a relief to hear that others also have persistent problems that continue for decades? In his forgiving and accepting love, Jeff.
Okay. Thank you, Jacima. So let me, anybody want to venture out into, with this subject? Ah, we already have. Oh, Jacima? Yeah.
Bob, Bob,
Okay, yeah, I thought I'd just jump in because well, Jeff, looking at your list, I found that I could answer yes to at least 6 of these items in varying degrees, but one in particular, regrets about words spoken, has been confusing and exhausting for quite some time. I wasn't even sure I could talk about it, but in trying to bring some clarity over the past couple of days, I wrote some short notes I'll read so as not to get too far off the track. So it's just a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
The complex I want to discuss is very much like the problem I encounter using email. I'm usually very careful, reading and rereading and asking Baba if it's okay before I press send. But occasionally send is pressed before due consideration, and the mind latches onto a word or a phrase and starts whispering, oh, that's not good. You should not have said it like that. And all the doubts and fears rush up concerning how the sent message might be taken. living through any normal day, interacting lightly or seriously with other human beings is to me very much like emailing without the aid of a send button. This leads to the great difficulty I sometimes have when the mind dredges up something I said or did, usually said, and starts running a word tape loop of doubts, fears, speculations concerning how those words were received. That worrisome loop lasts for minutes or hours, sometimes days, sometimes soon after the incident, and sometimes waking me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I recognize this as one of the persistent tricks of the ego mind because I think it is clearly mental speculation about how others perceive me, their opinions and judgments about this me. How useless, how futile. I cannot relate a specific incident just now because when the mind finally wears itself out obsessing about whatever it was, the specifics, no doubt trivial or completely forgotten. Furthermore, if I recall correctly, the few times I have been able to check back with others, they generally hadn't even taken much notice. Where does this weakness come from? Why? I have no idea. The only thing I've been able to do is try to entrust daily to Baba all thoughts, words, deeds, and results. And sometimes when I can remember that I have done that, it helps. Maybe it's helping more than I realize because I don't think I've had an incident of this in a while. Maybe, however, that's only because I've been much less in touch with folks for the last couple of years. In any case, the only thing that seems to help is to try over and over again to give this habit to Baba, to entrust it all to him. However, to do that wholeheartedly, as he says, well, that's a whole other thing that I'm not sure I can do in the least understand or practice. The end. Jai Baba.
Thank you. No, beautiful. I mean, then you're not the only one that has that. You know, there are people that just go back and reliving conversation. I should have said that. Why did I say that? No, it's universal, and it does make you turn to Baba for sure.
Tony?
Yes. Um, well, as a Virgo, I'm constantly second guessing myself about everything and finding where all my shortcomings and faults and weaknesses are. And I'm thinking, like, even now, should I be saying what I have in mind to say now? Maybe I'm really just being kind of arrogant about what I'm about to say. And I go on and on with this. But I think the whole point really is not to be concerned about our weaknesses. When they come up, when something comes up, and you know something's come up because you feel out of balance, you don't feel at peace, you don't feel good, you may be blaming someone else, but just still the one who's not feeling right. I use I try the Course in Miracles thing first, which is forgive myself for my reactiveness right now. In Baba's love, forgive myself for my forgive the person who I'm probably blaming for my reactiveness, and really try and recognize that I'm not seeing what's real. I'm not seeing what's real here, and I'm reacting to something that's reinforcing separateness, and it is focusing on the ego. Instead of remembering Baba, letting it go, giving it to him, it's focusing on the ego. Am I good enough? Should I do this? Am I standing out too much? Should I keep quiet? Should I speak out? Oh, God Almighty. It's just, how about Baba? What would you like me to do right now? And then just go for it, or shut up if that's what it is, if he wants. And if sometimes I'm at cross purposes with maybe what Baba wants, and he creates a situation on the outside, I go, all right, maybe you don't want me to do this thing. Okay. But not to focus on my own ego. That's the worst thing I do, is focus on my own ego and shortcomings. And it's not what Baba wants. I know it.
Me too. I get it. Yeah. but I don't, because it keeps. But anyway.
Well, that's our challenge then.
That's the challenge. Tony, One side note. When is your birthday?
Today.
Today, great. Mine was last week. I'm a Leo Virgo cusp, so I never know who I am.
I have a lot of Leos, so there you go. I'm Virgos want to be behind the scenes, the self-effacing, and my Leo planets want to be out there. So go figure, you know. Anyway, this is not an
Yeah.
astrology.
But the beautiful thing is that there's a line from Mani that she used to quote, which is, um, "I prayed to you for strength to carry out your work. You gave me weakness so I would depend on you." She used to quote that. So that's good. Okay, who's
Peter,
next?
Peter. Peter,
Yeah. Yes.
Louder,
Um,
Jessima. Yeah.
I would say my by the way, thanks for that message from Monty. Awesome, Jeff. I would say my biggest weakness, I'm a perfectionist. I'm hard on myself at times. I'll get really down on myself, and that leads to like sometimes inner depression and like almost like sadness and whatnot, and or sometimes I'll set goals and don't achieve them, and it's just like a downward spiral. So I'll say that's my biggest weakness. I try to give it to Baba, but it's hard sometimes. So trying to get better at that.
It kind of like dominates your thinking.
Yes, exactly. Like like I'll like if there's a mistake I make, or if something doesn't go my way, like or if there's a goal I set, like either a short term or long term goal, I'll like get upset with myself, and it's not easy. So that's my biggest weakness that I want to give to Baba.
You must have been doing something right because you're working here. You have the privilege of working at the center, so
Yeah,
you got something.
I got something right. Yes, exactly. I agree.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Peter.
One of the things that you said, Jeff, when we started talking about this topic was something that was a true gift. And hopefully I heard it right. But you said you can give it things that happened in the past to Baba retroactively.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that was really, really important to me, because sometimes when that home movie is playing and the loop is going around and around and around, and I keep trying to give a current thing to Baba, knowing I can do it for a past thing is just such a gift. I just hope he takes it a little faster than he does my current request.
Yeah, but you can change your whole relationship to your past instead of, kind of being a continual victim of your past, kind of cringing over the things you did back there in your college days. No, I mean, whatever. But, as I say, if we didn't do those things, we wouldn't have the empathy we have today if we did everything by the book.
Well, one of the things that I do get, it's one of my, Terry made this comment when it was all read, all those things. What did you say? All of them?
Yeah, I said I was going to just say, I don't want to be rude or anything, but all of them. I mean, I think that so many of us have touched on so many of them over a lifetime. It's, it's just, I couldn't believe how many you were able to come up with and that I could relate to.
Yeah, it wasn't hard. But Diane, is there like any kind of persistent theme?
Well, yeah,
to
I have been very vocal about this, but I've struggled with weight my whole life, and it has been a source of shame. The comments from my family was you have such a pretty face, but, and there was people felt in my family that they could say whatever they wanted because, as one uncle said, you're wearing your problems on your outside. See, when you look at me, you don't know all the problems I have because I'm not physically displaying them. So I've kind of thought, well, maybe it was my cry for help, and you know, versus squashing it. But it's been just through this pandemic and getting more connected with Baba that I've taken off 35 pounds. And this group doesn't know me as a big person. You only know me 2 inches anyway, and it's my most slender part. But
Yeah.
it is still a huge, huge struggle that I'm so afraid that I'm going to go back and be powerless over eating and gain it all back.
Mhm.
And so I literally am holding tight to Baba's Daman. So tight. But thank Baba that I'm not alone.
Yeah, and you kind of felt he intervened in his own way to do something that you weren't able to do independent of him.
I
Right.
kind of feel like when people say, well, what did you do? And, you know, if they're not Baba people, I don't bring up Baba, but I say something like it was about time.
Yeah. No, beautiful. Yeah. Anyone else?
Do you want to say something?
Well, yeah, maybe I'm stuck. Um, okay, I'll tell you my little one of my things. You know, I did really had a great kind of childhood and everything, and things were doing great. And I never had any problem talking that much with people, but when I reached junior high, I had to give these book reports and, you know, kind of memorize what I was going to say. And I would have such a pathological fear of, of public speaking. I never had to deal with that, you know, and I would be so dissociated inside of myself giving a book report that I would see my mouth down there talking this book report while I'm way off somewhere else. It was not an exalted experience by any means, and it was. I discovered I had, like I say, this pathological fear that was way out of proportion to the things that I was being asked to do. And then I got into Baba, and I would, being here at the center, and I'd be asked to go to these gatherings where I'd have to give talks, and I would like if they gave me 3 months in advance, you know, for the gathering, I would wake up every day for 3 months. Oh my God, I would just oh, I got to do this. I was just so anxious, and I would be giving it to Baba and giving it to Baba, but it was so disturbing that I couldn't even plan what I was going to say, or, you know, what was going to happen. I was so dysfunctional, except toward the last I tried to piece something together. And the crazy thing is that when I'd actually get to the moment of the gathering, I would be it would be perfectly fine. You know, it would all just happen. But I had no conviction up to that moment that I was going to be able to function, especially from my experiences at giving book reports in junior high. So this went on, and I would get invited to different places, and I'd, you know, give talks and all of that, or discussions, and I go through this torture. And the only reason I would say yes to these things is that I knew that it was just cowardice if I said no. So I said, I mean, I can't just, you know, just say no because, you know, I'm afraid. But on one occasion, this whole time I was giving it to Baba, and on one occasion I went to Atlanta, and, you know, I got there in the afternoon, and they said, "Well, take a little nap," and I'm in there trying to give concentric circles of anxiety to Baba. You know, just I've got through that concentric circle. Now I'm into the innermost. I mean, inner circle, and then another one, and then I, before having to speak, I'd go to the bathroom, I'd lock the door, and just be on the floor. I mean, I wasn't hiding this; it was just it. But anyway, so on this particular trip to Atlanta, I was with Rick Berman. He was driving me back to the airport to go back to Myrtle Beach, and he was doing some work with a Holocaust agency, and we were talking about that. And he dropped me off at the, where I was going to get on the plane, and I had this flash. I saw a flash of my past life, and in that flash, I was being interrogated. I was like a teenager, maybe 14 or so, being interrogated by two very menacing interrogators, who and I was somehow connected with some, like resistance movement. I was part of a whole network, and I had to deliver what I had to say letter perfect with these two menacing people, and I blew it. I failed. And so that meant that I was going to lose my life, and everybody connected with me would be tortured. And so that seeing that, which was kind of the root cause, after that, I was able to just have like normal anxiety, the same anxiety that most people have when they have to give a talk or something, but never that extreme, out of proportion, pathological fear of speaking. So Baba eventually turned the key on that, and so now it's it's only mildly mild torture. No, it's not anything as bad, but I'm still not as comfortable. I mean, I'd rather just not do anything, but here we are at Zoom. Okay, anyone else?
Fred has his hand raised. Fred,
Hello.
Yeah.
A great J. Mayor Baba to all of you tonight. Thank you for your story, Jeff.
Yeah.
You'll have to excuse me. I stepped in just about a minute after the email was read. I got most of it. I got the gist of it. I think owing to circumstances that are beyond our control, sometimes like when we consider that maybe our interactions are inadequate, or if we feel kind of like hard to see, hard to bear witness or witness how others could perceive things and trying to regret. I mean, I think that's kind of something that's social skills are learned. And yet I think it does take a lot. It takes a lot of courage to recognize. For example, I work with a friend on here but I work with a friend who we've been talking about the whole idea of becoming other-centered through a thoughtful and considerate, like, thinking before you speak, and trying to be more aware, at least in a in becoming friends with others, to be able to really see that person in that lens and create a dialogue where you're more in tune with others. As far as like the inadequacies go, or as far as the how you feel, I'm not the best one to ask. I'm more of an Easterner than I am a Westerner, in the sense that I'm kind of a I say this, and I've never been to the East, but it's my sense that they're more they're more like, they will agree to just about anything they say, to anything others say, but you don't take it personally, and you don't, it's, in other words, even what we see, what comes out of our mouth as speech, like, for example, I might agree with someone with something about someone, or I might go along with their scheme, but that's not the course of action that I follow. Like, my conscience and my conscious effort is to say, that's that person dealing with interior issues, or you could say something like, for example, I'll give you an example. I live in a poor community. Not that I love the poor, but I also find that there's kind of a mixture in between what you call good and bad people of all different, or good and not so good people of all walks of life. All right, I'll try to wrap it up, but what I wanted to say is, I find myself kind of neither obstinate, recalcitrant, nor active. So I'm not one to really, in other words, like, I remain like stone. In other words, there's very little that gets to me. For example, I just don't take things personally anymore. I find that, if you just, like Baba, I don't know if one of his teachings was that, if you remain like stone as a symbolic narrative, a symbolic interactionism, you're not as apt to really let it affect you, or let it run your life. I was just reading in Treasures from the Baba Journal tonight, the one that was done by Jane Haynes and Kitty Davey, and it talked about how, when families live in a close-knit household and you're inside four walls, and you have families, and they know, and soon enough they know every iota about what is going on with the other person in that household, and it gets stuffy. So when it becomes stuffy like that, you have to consider that we might hold grudges, but try to get over it. It's really not worth getting in fights about. I mean, we all do it. We all get in fights, and that's natural. Anyway, I wanted to comment on the email too about, like, something that really bothers me these days is overpopulation, and the whole overpopulation thing is out of control, on top of some other unscrupulous or unethical people in society, socially irresponsible people in society, morally unsound people in society. I mean, it's out of control. And I mean, if there's one thing that really bothers me, and I'll tell you, I've been through a lot. I was stationed at a residential home one time for 7.5 years, 8 years, in which I was, like, verbally assaulted all the time. But just that, I can take a lot, but this whole overpopulation thing is really driving me crazy. I can't believe it. Astounds me. It astounds me that we're in this mess today. But, the only thing I can say is that I did my best to pivot, or to transition this whole process in a thoughtful and considerate way, as best as I was able, to move this forward so that we don't have to deal with overpopulation in the future.
Okay, Fred, we got a few other people here.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine. Okay,
Yeah.
Baba.
thank you, yeah.
Peter.
Yeah, it's hard to remain, not to take things personally, definitely. But let's go ahead.
All right, thank you, J. Mary Bob, everybody. I was able to read the email, as a matter of fact, when I was at work, because work was very slow and I could do that there. And I appreciated the vulnerability. And as I was briefly reflecting upon each one of the issues, yeah, I too, I can relate to almost, if not every one of those. And just a shout out to Tony briefly with a happy birthday. I get the Leo Virgo cusp because I'm a Pisces. I'm March 19th. You know, I have that tender side and I get attacked by the Aries side. I just want to achieve. As embarrassing as it is, I've been through many processes, and the last one what I focused on is being powerless over my negativity, my moodiness. It's like no matter what I do, I've been through many processes. I've gone to every resource that free can offer and that I trusted. And when I went through one of those processes, someone convinced me to make health my number one priority. And I didn't understand why I felt so powerless over these issues. And I went to a doctor and they found toxins in my system. They says, you have, like, in my words, a boatload of heavy metals in your system, and you have a lot of Epstein-Barr virus in your system. And 3 very astute people said, yeah, you have those, you're not going to be happy, or at least it's going to be very, very, very challenging. And my Ayurvedic doctor said, for anyone that knows this, Pitta Vata, which means I have double the share of weaknesses or challenges, any way you want to frame it. And yes, I think I very much resonate with what Jeff said. I think what Monty said is many times, no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, the weaknesses persist. And I do think what starts leaving me is a judgment I have toward those weaknesses. So I don't feel so critical of other people. And I think, as Napoleon Hill would say, I'll just paraphrase what he said, he's not really interested in what political party someone's in, not your worldviews, all that kind of stuff, but how much effort one is making towards self-improvement, like how much effort someone is making toward their betterment. So I just got through one of these very, very long processes, one of the longest that I've ever been through. And by the way, several people, I'll leave them remaining nameless, said much of these issues are from past lives. So I've been doing meditations around relinquishing those, giving it to Baba, giving it, ad infinitum, as much as I could bear. And what am I thinking? Recently, I went through a program by none other than Susie Orman, and she has affirmations. So I've been starting to do those. She said that will relinquish the fear. So yes, I feel like I have them in spades. Yes, I feel deeply ashamed when I act out with these. And also it keeps me very alone. And as someone like Tony Robbins would say, I feel like smacking the crap out of this guy when he says it, but I think he's right. You're alone because you want to be. All right, when I sit there and digest it, I think he's right, because I've been so isolated, I'm so introverted that being around people kind of shocks me. It shocks my system. And being that I'm interested in worldly views, a lot of time I think my views kind of are abrasive to people, though I want to come back to center with them and not be too adamant. So yes, again, I read the email. It was a very lovely email. I think I deeply appreciate the vulnerability, well written. I resonate with, I think, all the above. And thank you very much for the topic. I think I'm just going to keep on persist on. Jai Baba, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. Yeah. Well, we'll find out what Marion has had to deal with.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your sharing. As I resonate with, I could give a little check mark by each one of those. And of course, there's some that stand out more than others. And I was thinking a little bit like, well, what can I share that would be succinct and really put across what I struggle with? And I'm looking at most everyone, what I've repeated mostly as beliefs that then they manifest in my life in certain ways, that what are the ones that are the strongest ones. And I can look at this life in my early childhood, as Baba said, we don't have to go in our past lives, we can just use this life. But I've had quite a number of my past lives revealed to me. From this life, the youngest of 4 in a family that came out of the Depression, and me being the youngest, I had to kind of learn things by the seat of my pants and learn from my sisters and my brother, so I got taken care of my basic needs, but there was no looking at me, no reflecting, no saying, oh, Marion, you're my beautiful daughter, none of that. No arms around me, just cuddling me and holding me to nurture me. So I found that my patterns as I got older that I repeated was a lot with what is in the psychological realm called codependency, where I would give my power over to others, especially to the man. So I'd been married, I got divorced, and another important relationship. And what I learned from the pain of these ending is that where I feel deficient in myself, lacking something, lacking self-love, connecting to my own inner self, looking for it outside. And so not big news. I've known this for decades. So it's getting more honed down that I do it less and less and less, and I'm noticing it more. So that's my liberation. Is I was taught in my training for being a transformational therapist, is that the first step of transformation is not trying to be different. It's observation. It's what we're all talking about. All of you have said it in your own language, and that is speaking it. I call it like being a New York Times reporter. Hey, I noticed that came up again, where I feel like I'm not enough, or I feel like I'm not going to have enough money to do the things I need, or, oh, I'm not going to have enough time to do my writing. I do my memoir writing. Or so I came up with 3 main beliefs just in the last few years, because I've worked on so many, and that is too much to do, not enough time, and not enough money. Now, those are just kind of general, because I've been working on specific changing beliefs and negative beliefs for decades. But these were ones that remained more having me in their clutches. And it makes me report it to Bob because there's no quick fix. And so I have to, so I employ that. The first step of transformation is observation. So who do I tell? I tell God. And me not try to fix it. So I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful for that, because it just lifts any kind of guilt or trying harder or trying to be better, that kind. So since I tended to be more codependent, I wanted to look better and try to get love from others. And so that only led to terrible pain. So now I feel kind of liberated, that not that I feel so good emotionally all the time, as Baba said, it's through the pain that one enters into pleasure. So there's 2 sides of every coin in duality, pain and pleasure, happiness and unhappiness. When they can both be held equally, it's the entree to the unitive state. So in knowing that, I feel very willing to, I'm trained in energy work, because it starts in the mental body, belief, then it's in the subtle body of energy, and then manifest into the physical body. So I have my hitting bat, it's called a bataka, and if something comes up, I'm judging myself or someone else, or blaming someone else for how I feel. I recognize it, and I just go in, and I use Baba's The Ancient One photograph. That's the one I like to use best. And so I tell Baba, I've been triggered by XYZ, a person or an incident, whatever. They don't cause it. So I feel grounded in the conceptual, and that I'm now going to release it from my energy field. so that I may be filled with your light, love, and life, Baba. And then, since I'm trained in how to ground myself and how to beat up something and throw people off the bridge and bury them in a hole, and I can do all of this energetically because I'm not attached to it. I'm bringing it out and giving it over. And I just kind of let it rip. So for me, and everybody's different, mine is needing to express emotion. Somebody else, it might be getting their thoughts organized. Me, it's about emotion. And so I just will use a lot of psychodrama, beat up the pillow, toss it around, stomp on it, whatever, until I feel that's released from my energy field, from lifetimes of having that stored there. And then I've been, then it lightens up and I start vibrating all through my body and I ground it. And then I start smiling and it looks like, almost looks like Mayor Baba's picture is smiling. I feel like Baba's saying, I'm proud of you. You, the original, tried to be the good do-gooder. The other side of that is of being the slave is being the tyrant. So if I'm acting like a slave in my life and giving my power to others, I got to go to the tyrant side, but only with the grace of Baba, not acting it out and not swallowing it into my body and my energy field. So I'm doing this. So it's on in my to-do list every day. That's on part of my toolbox is lower self-expression, because everything we're talking about is the lower self, and it's the gateway to a deeper level of the higher self. And I can't access more of my higher self unless I go through the lower self. I cannot go through the lower self without Baba's hand. I cannot. And of course, help with other people, like-minded ones, a therapist. And for me, it's about having some pleasure. So things will come to me inspirationally, like I've got tons of wonderful music, old tape CDs and everything. I danced all my life and sang and everything. I play the harmonica and the recorder, and that gets to be last on the list. So when I put it up on my list to allow that creative expression, I can feel my human self saying, no, I'm not. I'm staying in this pain of suffering with not enough time, too much to do, and I'm not doing that. And then my higher self says, okay, I hear you. Now, the highest form of love is right action. Do you want to take the right action? I say, okay, I'll give it a try. So even though these are things I love, once I put Benny Goodman on today, my tape of Benny Goodman, and I could not dance. I didn't try dancing. I didn't want to dance. So I've learned not to wait till I want to do something, because I'll never want to do it as a human being. I'll want to stay in the low vibration. However, it's only through, as you say, reporting it to Baba, and I give it over to Baba, that will come in that, well, put on the tape anyway and see what happens. Okay, so I'll belligerently do it. And then it's all lightness of being, lightness of being. So I call it the dance between spirit and human. Spirit and human. It's the dance every day, and I'm doing it every day. So I'll end with that.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. And boy, that's a journey. Okay.
Marty.
Hi.
Hey.
So this topic is very interesting because it came up in my life very specifically yesterday, but I feel like the journey of healing is really, it's kind of makes my head explode if I think about it too much, but it's the journey of Baba working out his own sanskaras through you. Because sometimes I feel like I'm just this body that's kind of like Baba needs to work this out, and he needs to experience these things. And so he has to do it through us. And, he creates this illusion of all these sanskaras and all this, because sometimes I feel like he uses our experience to work out what he needs to, because it's really all him. That's why my brain kind of explodes when I think about it, because it's like it's too much. But what I found is he kind of gives us, Baba gives us like the gift of, our gift to him is obedience. And so I feel like when we open the journey of healing, we let him decide when he wants to bring those sanskaras up. And as soon as we like open up to that, we can't force it, and it's completely in his timing. And when you surrender to it, he works it out in ways that are so perfect that, because he works it out for himself. Like Baba's very selfish. Baba likes things to go his way and work on his own time. And so what I found is he uses the people in my life to, kind of like Marian said, like trigger you. And what I found is if I try to experience it as Margie and like, yeah, bring it as the Margie experience, then it is so painful and so hard and I can't get out of it. And I just create problems for myself. But if I let Baba through me experience it, it's like a purge kind of. And what I found is like the emotion that comes with it is actually Baba just going through the emotion. You're not connecting to it. It's just coming through you. So even if it's so much pain, you're actually doing it in service to Baba because you're letting him experience it. And so, sorry, this is kind of a tangent, but yesterday I had something come up that was really intense and felt very much deeper than like my own moment. But I was triggered by something and I had this massive breakdown, like hyperventilating, panic attack. I was shaking. And afterwards, I felt this massive clearing and I kind of saw Baba in my inner sight do this, which was like his symbol for like going caca. And I got this like sensation of this was something from past lives that I've been holding on to. But when you let Baba experience it, it can actually pass and it's done and it doesn't have to either anymore.
This is fantastic, Margie. I mean, that's what Baba calls, the provisional ego, that it's Baba that's experiencing this and not us. And when he's doing it, it fleshes it out much better than if we're going through these experiences.
Yeah, and experiencing that pain is actually like the greatest service to him because he needs us is kind of what he needs like our surrenderance to let him go through what he needs to go through.
Yeah, excellent. This is, wow. Yeah, that is that's a very helpful way of viewing experience. I mean, Bob is really encouraging us to do the very thing you're talking about. Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. That way you don't take it so personally.
Yeah. And then when you're in pain, it's like, okay, it's in service to Baba, so it's not so bad. I mean, it is bad, but it goes away quickly.
Yeah, excellent. Anybody else who has like some persistent weakness that's just kind of stayed and dogged you for decades?
Robin.
Oh, I don't know how to put this exactly, but I've been thinking about it like all week, or for years actually. But I think my biggest weakness is that I just feel unlovable. And, God says he loves us more than we could ever love ourselves. And that went through my mind for years and it helped so much. And I thought, well, he couldn't really love me. And then I thought, well, if he loves murderers and rapists, maybe he loves me some, I don't know. But, so I've come a long way with that. But I just had this feeling of inadequacy that has sort of plagued me all my life. And there are just times, just like I walk past a mirror or something, and I just think, well, I'm just not lovable, it's just not. And I don't think that he wants me to feel that way. I think that it's like doing sort of my spiritual journey a disservice by letting that persist. And it kind of feels like it blocks me from loving him the way it feels like, I want to or should be able to love him. So it's something that I just, struggle with. And I guess that's all I'll say for now. Thanks.
But like you say,
Great topic.
yeah, and it's something that, like you say, you've just been I mean, a lot of people, feel inadequate and all of that, but you do feel like you've made some headway on that particular complex over the years.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm very aware of it, and it comes up, but it comes up as a kind of a thing instead of a whole system. It's like I can sort of compartmentalize it and put it in its place better than I used to be able to. Before I didn't even know that it, I don't know how to put it, but
I mean, it's more
definitely
situational
progress.
now rather than kind of systemic. It
Yeah.
comes up in situations, but it's not something you're carrying around all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, it's almost like I wait for people to get to the point where they see me in a way that, of course, they won't love me or even, approve of me. And I mean, I personally, like even with my husband, he's had his moments where he hasn't been, but mostly he's always been totally like supportive and admiring of me and all that kind of stuff. And I've kind of separated from him and all, and I just still kind of wait for him to get to the point where, of course, he's going to be like angry with me and have had it with me and see me for the part of me that's unlovable and react to that. And he's sort of never gotten to that point, the whole situation and everything. But it's like, it's just amazing to me that I can't relax enough to just believe that I'm okay,
Yeah.
and yet, I mean, I have come a long way with it. I mean, it used to be the whole way that I was, and it's not anymore. But I'm also finding that I really am kind of isolating a lot. I don't really want to be around too many people, and I don't know what I don't know what that's about exactly. I mean, the pandemic kind of, set it up for me, but I really just, I don't want to go to any programs. I have friends that I hang out with and stuff a little bit and that I'm close to, but I don't know. It's just an interesting, very interesting time. And it feels like it's all about a spiritual journey, but I don't even know what that really means.
One question that occurs to me is, does it make you feel, I mean, having that complex, does it make you more empathetic toward others?
Absolutely. I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of things that I grew up feeling like and stuff. And in the work that I did, it helped me tremendously to feel like, I could understand what the women that I was trying to help were going through. And I had been very depressed at times and suicidal even. And, I could talk to people about all that kind of stuff. And I really valued those experiences almost more than any that I had, because I think it did give me the ability to really relate and connect with people. Yeah, I mean, I just think that all of our experiences make us more and more capable of having empathy and understanding. And I too, like Marion, did a lot of psychodrama, and it really helped. It felt at the time, for the years I was doing it, that I could really understand, we're all kind of damaged in one way or another, and at the core of it in very similar ways. And it just sort of levels the playing field, or makes it such a universal experience to be human. Even though we're all very different, there's some pretty basic stuff that we're all dealing with.
Yeah. Beautiful. No, that was really beautiful, all that you said, really. And we're all, Erich used to say, we're all in the same boat. And then you could say, Erich, you're in the same boat with us? But he would say, if I wouldn't be here if I really knew what I was doing,
Yeah. none of us are done or we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're here to get done, so it's a good place to be.
So Mahu, what's your persistent weakness that you've?
My persistence weakness, which has been there for years, but it's gotten better and better, but it still is there. The residue is there. Is when I came to Baba and I started experiencing still some of the worldly things around people I was associating with, and particularly Baba lovers, and later on people I was working with and so forth. In the beginning, it really was bothering me so much. I mean, enough that I would lose my sleep over it. I couldn't go to sleep. So I just could not comprehend it, because I was thinking, well, when I was in the world, which it took me a while to come to Baba, I was getting it, and I'm getting it. So I thought, when I'm coming to him, and this, you know, when I'm around the group and when I'm around Baba lovers and this and that, it's like a sanctuary, and I'm immune, you know, from things, let's just say things. But that wasn't the case. And the more I got to know about Baba and how he says, I have come not to teach but to awaken, but his awakening processes, I realized that it's all illusion. Okay, even you know, the group, the center, the Baba lovers, the non-Baba lovers, the co-workers, the cashiers at the store, and they're all part of this illusion. So I cannot take it very seriously, right? So, but still I have it. It still bothers me, but not as much as before. When people are unkind or somehow use sarcastic remarks or this and that, first I try to interpret it, oh, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe he or she is having a bad day today, or maybe something within is bothering them or something. I try to justify it so I can get rid of this entanglement. But then when it continues, I find myself being still sensitive toward it. So that has not gone away for 20, God knows how many years. That's my weakness. But I have also a remedy. So when it comes to me, when my feeling, when it evokes my emotion and feeling, and I lose my balance of tranquility or the peace that I have, and I do a lot to have that. It's not that naturally I have peace and tranquility. No, I don't. But I do different things to meditation, exercise, yoga, that you know, solitude, and even seclusion and all that stuff to bring myself to a stable position. You know, I can find my ground, you know, and start from there. But you know, when it comes, then this weakness, when it attacks me, and I know it's my sanskaras, it has nothing to do with anybody or anything, because the world is the world. Illusion is the illusion. It all depends on how I'm taking it in, how I'm dealing with it. How does it affect me? How do I let it affect me? You know, like that. So I have a way of distracting myself. I have a way of distracting myself from that thought process, because that thought process comes in, you know, even if it might be half an hour, might be 2 hours, might be, you know, several hours, and I distract myself. I try to distract myself, not to think about it. That's the key. And the way I can distract myself is either I listen to Baba music, I immediately go to YouTube, find a video of Baba singing that I really love. And or I watch his video, or I read something about him, a passage, and that just revamped this whole the stage that I'm in, and it helps me. Sometimes it's easier to get out of it, sometimes it is not. But and your questions, Jeff, was very comprehensive. It almost targeted many areas. That's also wonderful. But I realize that if I start thinking about my weaknesses, I get involved in my weaknesses, because my weaknesses, I can't do anything about it, because I have a master. He is my physician. He is my psychologist. He's my father, brother, sister, mother, you name it, right? So why don't I let Baba either take care of it, or like what Darwin used to say, just love him. I was reading this most beautiful passage about Darwin the other day. He said, just love Baba in any way you can. He is a doorway to infinite. And it doesn't matter how you love him. You just love him and remembering him. And soon you'll find him in everything and everywhere that you are. You find him somehow. So that's also very helpful. Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's. Let's see. We got anyone else wants to venture out into the mid-ocean?
Jeff,
Yeah.
I mean, the first and weaknesses that all you listed, I think I have all those listed. At least I used to make effort earlier, like few years back, like reading books or following the tips and actions. But I mean, since few years, I'm not doing anything. I mean, not putting any effort. But I still have those persistent weaknesses, like procrastination. I mean, there's no improvement.
There's no what? Oh, no improvement. Oh, um, yeah. So, like, say, procrastination is one of your things, and one of my things. Um, but does it make well? At least it makes you think about Baba, or do you kind of just experience it, kind of independent of Baba?
I mean, I think about Baba. Yeah.
Yeah. So it has that. At least it serves that. I think some of our weaknesses are to remind us to remember Baba. If everything's going smoothly and everything, we can kind of lapse into a complacency if we're not careful. Yeah. Let's see. I mean, should I choose somebody? Let me ask Ruthie. You could pass.
No, it's cool.
Uh,
I signed in and I couldn't raise my hand because
Yeah.
when I logged in, I got to be co-host. And so there's
Oh.
no hand raise function.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I was thinking I might just jump in at some point. It's great. I really appreciate what you've brought to us, Jeff, in the form of these questions. And this is the first time I think I've been here for your late night for quite a while. And I just locked in when I looked at the calendar and thought, this is great. I'm going to definitely be there. There's so much I've heard and there's so much I'm taking note of, gratefully. I think that if I had to look at my weaknesses, I don't know if I could pick one or the other, but I think it's like a little ping pong match between fear and anger. fear and anger, fear and anger. And so I guess I'll just address one right now. And I guess I'll talk about fear. And I'm grateful you did, Jeff. You know, the older I get, the closer I get to the doorway, the more fearful I am of that door opening and me passing. So I think that's kind of what I've been dealing with lately. I've had some changes in my health condition. So I have had kind of a face-to-face, you know, kind of a hit the wall almost experience with fear about it. Gratefully, like so many have said, we've been with Baba, you know, for at least in this life, we've been with him for a little while, and there are so many gifts and so much grace, I think, that I've received, that I didn't stay in that state of strong fear for very long. It was probably, I don't know, I don't even think it was a week, might have been a week. And when I came out the other side, I mean, it's searing is the only word I can use. There's a burning that occurred. And what it seared away from me, and I'm so grateful for these experiences that Baba has brought to my life because of physical stuff. But what it seared away from me was a lot of everything else, and only his name remained. So that has been such a gift. And I know everyone here knows this gift. And it might sound trite, but it's not trite in my heart today. That's the thing that is strongest right now, is just the strength of his name. As I went through that kind of that week of just intense anxiety and fear, the only thing that would do anything was to say his name over and over. And then it all would just kind of back off. And so anyway, I see heads shaking like, yeah, they know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I'm just bringing, you know, first of all, the gratitude that he gave me such a short period in that intense anxiety. The gratitude of his name, which I've already said, and I'm not going to say anymore, or I'll just cry. And I think the gratitude of waking up each day and thinking, you've given me another day to try to love you. What an incredible gift. You know, I'm not going to say never, and I don't know this, but I don't feel in myself that I ever get there in the day. But you know, we're all making our efforts to in remembrance and joy and, you know, trying to bring his love forth for other people, trying to remember not to be cranky and trying to, you know, we're all trying so hard to love him. But, you know, imagine what it'll be like. That's what I got. Thanks.
Beautiful. You know, just to mention one thing briefly, but I've been at the the passing of a lot of Baba people, and not one of them has been fearful as they approach that time, really, because when they come toward the end, Baba gives them experiences of the other side, where a lot of our life has been lived from the inner dimension, even though it's coming through right here in this dimension. So that a lot of our inspiration, the love, the service, the creativity is on the very place, you know, where we're going to. Whereas a lot of people who haven't opened to that dimension, when they come to the end of their life, it's like a 1,000-foot drop off. But for the Baba people, they look over and they see the other side. Wow, that's all familiar country to me. So it's not, I mean, it's amazing, because I remember, you probably remember Walter Overkarsh, and he was moving between the inner and the outer, and I said, Walter, what it's like? He said, it is so fantastic over here. You guys are just watching a little drama, a little, with some characters and he was over in that other realm. So we have something beautiful ahead of us. Bob Brown used to worry. He used to worry about dying. I mean, from like Woody Allen, way back 20 years ago. I used to say, Bob, you're projecting what it's going to be like 20 years from now. Wait, your consciousness is going to go through so many changes so that 20 years from now you're going to be in a different place. And sure enough, he had no problem with dying. His consciousness had completely changed over 20 years, that he was in a great space when his time came. So it's kind of funny. Anyway, I just throw that out.
Tony?
Yes, hi. I was aware when I almost raced in to raise my hand to be the first or at least the second person to speak, that I thought of the Course in Miracles line that the ego always speaks first and loudest, and the real self kind of whispers quietly after. I think I really wanted to not respond to this question. I have the shortcomings, there's weaknesses, and then there's like these stuck places that I have anyway. And one with me is, and it must go back lifetimes, but the experience of sudden, extreme, devastating loss, like something that feels like a house falling on you. And I have experienced, and I know that feeling is like pulverizing. My father died when I was 9. My first girlfriend suddenly married someone else. That took me about 8 years to shake off. Just prior to 9/11, some virus hit I feel Baba wants me to bring he's given me gifts to share, and I have been too reticent to really get them out there. And I was getting a bunch of stuff together, and a virus hit my computer and wiped everything out just before the Twin Towers came down. So I had a touch of that again this past year when my daughter stopped talking to me. And but my relationship with Baba has been better and more flowing and more consistent. And I'm going ahead and bringing these gifts out and sharing them, and I'm feeling happy about that. And I was racing to get this Kindle book out of the book that I just put on Amazon. And last night at about 2 a.m., I did something stupid, I guess. I deleted a file, but I basically don't have access to the thing I've been working on for 2 weeks, and it may be lost to me. And it was that same thing again, that sudden boom building, and I was up till 4 o'clock. If you saw me yawning, Zeke thought it might look like I was bored with someone, but I got to bed at about 4:30 and I was up at 8, because I was trying to at least get pictures of all the editorial changes I'd made. And I had to stop because I had to get to bed, and it's my birthday, and we were going to a party, and I had to be someone else's birthday too. I woke up after 3.5 hours, and there was that heavy, deadened feeling in me. And just to cut to the chase, it's like a point came where I said, Baba, I cannot do this again. I know my relationship with you. I know when I connect with the truth with you, and I'm not willing to experience. It's almost like it's gluttonous to go through a prior bad experience over and over again. I'm not willing to give up what I have got with you now. And Zeke saw me when at 4 in the morning, because she was up with Elena. She said, well, here's what you do. Take Baba's name and take a deep breath. And it immediately helped, but then the thing came back. And this morning it was like I could labor over figuring out where this comes from. I have ideas. But it was a matter of making a decision, not that I was focusing on my ego, my pain, and making a decision not to do that and to step back and say, Baba, let me trust you in this situation that's happened. And it started lifting. And not only that, and it actually, I made it lift. I brought it to Baba to make it lift. And not only that, my daughter sent me a text wishing me a happy birthday. It's like the first communication in a year. But I first had to take a stand that my weakness, my compulsive shortcoming, my karmic thing, whatever it is not as important as remembering Baba. And it's not real. It's not as real as remembering Baba.
Beautiful. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Before I ask Patty something, she always has good things to. Here's a way that Darwin described our experience over time. It's like this spiral that goes around and around, but each time it comes around, it's a little bit higher. And it goes around and it's a little bit higher. So, for example, you have a problem with authority, and so then you get your first job and then you're dealing with some boss, and then it comes around, you get, you're in a professor or something like that, and you have a problem with the authority. It keeps coming around, and it seems like you're getting the same problem over and over again, but you're dealing with it at a higher level. It seems like it's the same old thing, but we're spiraling out of a lot of weaknesses and moving higher and higher into Baba's being. That was the metaphor that he gave. I don't know if that's clear, but I always feel like, wow, here it comes again, But we just find better ways to deal with these same situations that have occurred from childhood to young adulthood, all the middle age, all the way. But each time we are actually getting better at bringing Baba into it, taking it less seriously, less personally, whatever. Anyway, I just wanted to give that metaphor. So, Patty, anything that some weakness that has been dogging you for centuries?
Yeah, centuries. Thank you. That's it, Jay Baba. Well, honestly, Ruthie and Marion and Margie and Tony, and everybody who has shared, I can honestly say I have felt and lived through all of these fears and judgments and loss and anger and frustration. I mean, really, when you wrote all that out, Jeff, I had to laugh. And Jim says, well, it's everything. And I read it to him. He said, well, everybody has that. And I thought, oh my God. But so true. And, I'm going to say, Ruthie, to you and to everybody here, just this week prior, I went through a very similar thing with fear. And God only knows, and you guys have listened to this too, how many times I've participated in really believing I was giving it to Baba wholeheartedly. I wake up every day and I say, I give wholeheartedly to you all my weaknesses, my fears, everything. I entrust my words, my deeds, and thoughts to you every day. And I'll say it sometimes 15 minutes in the morning. I'll say the chants, I'll do everything. But I give it to him, and I'll be damned, I take the damn thing back, and, and so I was up against a very difficult oncologist appointment, and I was extremely fearful of what he was going to say to me. And I had a diagnosis that was has come upon me, and he had invited me and wanted me in a trial, and I was so afraid to be in the trial. My body said no, 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 no. And I have a lot of complications, neither here nor there, but it's an aging body, well lived, well loved. But at a point where I was saying to Baba, I can't do this anymore. You know, I'm going to give it to you again and again and again. You're going to be the words of the doctor. I'll do my part. I'll write my little note to him like I do, because you know, they don't give you more than 20 minutes, you know. So I wrote out all the stuff. I hadn't seen him in 4 months, and he wanted an appointment to ask me if I would do this test, guinea pig stuff. And I was clear I didn't want to do that. And Baba, I didn't think wanted me to do it either. So I was banking on that. But how I said it to Baba was, you're his words, you're me. It's you playing it through me, whoever said that earlier. And that's how I felt. It's you're this whole game here. So I will listen to him. I'll do my part. I will listen to him, and I'll do anything he says that you say through him. You're him. And I mean, I really felt like I had given it to him. And so we go in there, Jim's with me, you know, we're real nervous. It's not the happiest place in the world to do it. So, you know, we'll have a Valley Cancer Center, lots of difficult things happen in there. And so we get in there, and he came in first thing. He says, I've read your letter. Okay. He says, first and foremost, I understand by your indication that being in the test study is not probably going to happen for you. And he says, with that said, I want to remind you that when you came to me, you know, 4 months ago, I told you that the wait and see option was the best option for you. Wait and see. We'll wait and see. There's no reason, if you're not going to do this experimental hormone immune support system, which isn't real simple, mind you. He said, then we just wait. You come back in another 4 months, we'll watch it. You could watch it for 10 years, he said to me. And I'm like, Jim and I are looking at each other because we're all ready to go with this other chemical he wanted to put in it. And I literally was stymied. And he said, no worries. You know, he did an exam, did this whole thing. That we're fine. You come back, make an appointment. I'll see you in 4 months. We'll go from there. We'll just watch it. And I was shocked. I mean, I was totally shocked, literally. You know, I've been in contact with Rick and Cheryl. We're all planning on going to be doing all this stuff, you know, all this stuff. But I want to say is, I think I really gave it to him that day. I mean, I think he was happy that I said, I'm not going to try and do this. It's your body, your karma through me. You know, you just do it. So in that sense, and of course I say his name pretty much all day long, my God, all day long. But I do still deal with, am I enough? Do I love him enough? And if it is the end of my life, have I screwed up along the way with all these gifts? You've given me all these gifts. I haven't written much down. I haven't, you know, all that stuff still persists no matter how much I believe I give it to him. And I suspect it's that, what you just said, we swing out a little further and we've given a little more away, and we're okay. We're okay. And I'm at the point now, Ruth, and everybody on the screen, I believe I am okay. I believe that whatever is in my path is from him, with his grace and with his love, and he knows more than I know. And I've got to really quit trying to take the damn thing back all the time. You know, it's just, it's crazy what the ego wants to do. You know, if we live with that expanded presence of being with him, he is so loving and so giving that all you can do is just be full of gratitude and say, thank you, Baba. Thank you, Baba. Thank you, Baba. So thank you guys for
beautiful.
Anything. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Love everybody on the screen. It's so helpful when you know, I mean, I don't know a lot of you, and with Marion too. I mean, I think I've gone through every process from everything, you know, the Tony, that and Jungian psychology and seeing a psychologist most of my life and doing anything and everything that came along. Affirmations this, affirmations that. But what it gets down to is just him. It's just him. So,
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Thank
Jai
you.
Baba, Patty.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm-
Really sweet.
I'm going to go a little bit. I'm going to ask someone else, and you can pass if you like. But I always enjoy hearing from Janet Jacobs. I hope, and you can pass if you like. This is all voluntary. Ah, there she is. Have you
You're
got,
muted. You're
we
muted.
can't hear you yet. You're muted.
Okay, I said, talk about appealing to the ego. You know, you always enjoy hearing from me. So of course I like to hear that. But yeah, I was very taken with this whole topic, and
Whoop, you're muted again somehow.
I am.
Oh, now you're good.
Okay. I mean, I've enjoyed what everyone has said, but what Patty and Ruth said in particular had a great deal of meaning for me. I'm right now, my grandnephew, my sister's 6-year-old nephew, has brain cancer, and it's a very devastating situation, of course, you know, 6 years old and all of that. And what's coming up for me, I mean, my sister tonight was saying she appreciated me so much and all of this, and no matter what, I just don't feel like I can possibly do enough. I mean, they're not here. They're in Minnesota and I'm in Colorado, but I mean, yeah, I don't. And so, I mean, I, of course, talked to Bob about it, and I know it's all in Baba's hands, and I can feel. Today I had a bit of an awakening or an awareness or whatever you want to call it about how all of these difficulties in life, when they awaken more love within us, which this is, you know, this is like I mean, his parents have always loved him. This is a child who is just very lovable. I mean, I won't go into it, but very lovable child filled with light and laughter and yeah, so this awakening, this thought came from Baba that whatever leads us to gather our love together in a deeper, more a deeper way that washes through some of our, and this is what I've been picking up from some of you, washes through our the layers of some of our sanskaras that are you know, like mine is that I can't do enough, and no matter what I do, it isn't enough, and even when I do all I can, sometimes it seems like people get mad at me, and so I, you know, but that whatever helps to wash that aside and just opens us to the reality of our deep love is Baba's work. It's Baba's, I don't know if work's the right word, but it's Baba's, it's what Baba's creating here, even if it is difficult and painful. It awakens our compassion for one another and our love for one another, and it doesn't make it easy. It doesn't, for me at least, it doesn't make it easy. It's still very difficult, but it seems it creates a layer of something let's see, a layer of something that I can feel Baba's love more, that I can feel the presence of love more. And not just me, but you know, the presence of love of Baba becomes more apparent. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
And we gather with one another in that love, instead of gathering in our ways of being, you know, separate from each other and at odds with each other. So anyway, that is what I would like to contribute.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and yeah, and yeah, just the ordinariness of life is suddenly is deep into a much profounder level of love.
Yes, thank
I-
you. I always count on you to be able to say what I wanted to say.
You said it well, and you said it with feeling.
Yes.
Let's see, you know, we lost Ferrishdale. Was hoping she would read Hafiz, one of her translations, but she has slipped out. Now, I'm going to put one other person on the spot, but they don't have to say anything. You can pass. Dinku, are you there? Maybe she's there in India.
I'm there, Jeff.
Uh-huh. I don't know if you wanted to say anything. I'm just, you know, you can pass, and we can kind of go on to.
Well,
yeah.
I can say that most of these things, 95% of them, I think, I can relate to, and I go through, and I'm still struggling with them, but right now I can't think of anything specific.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm just floating around, but not really doing anything worthwhile. There are times when, yeah, I can accept myself, but most times I have doubts about who I am and am I worthy? You know, those kind of things. Whether it's, and even, you know, procrastination, I tend to do that a lot. So I'm still struggling to overcome these things. And it was really, really helpful to hear everybody. So thank you so much, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to listen to this over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you know, before we close, I'll tell you one of my things. I mean, it's like, talk about procrastination or and everything. I'll just take one aspect of it. Is like, I put things back in their place about 80% of the time. But then there's the 20% where things don't get put back. And then another week goes by and the 20%, it's like now we're 40% of things weren't put by. And after years, I mean, like, it was good, I got 80% of it done, but when you talk about things that don't get done, I mean, that's a lot of stuff that didn't get done, you know. And so that's I don't know what causes it. I'm now getting better at completing things, you know, but I mean for years. And so but the thing is that now I got all the stuff that's not complete, and I don't have the enthusiasm for getting it all back to zero again, you know. It's just, so I just decided just to bulldoze my place and just start all over. Get a double wide and the hell with it. No. Anyway, there are things that are just kind of built into us that are just not going to work. They're just not. Anyway, here's what. Has anyone got a last a quote of Baba that would be nice before we have a period of silence? Trying to think if I've got something around here.
Hey Jeff, I have something actually.
Okay,
I'm
good.
looking at these Bible quotes for a project I'm doing. Throw your burden at my feet. I am the ocean and will dissolve all your worries. Meher Baba.
Yeah, say that once again and we'll have a few moments of silence. Yeah.
Throw your burden at my feet. I am the ocean and will dissolve all your worries. Meher Baba.
Yeah. Jai Baba. Yeah. Thank you all for being open and vulnerable and sharing these things. I mean, all this helps. And as we said, I think Bob said it some days back, you know, you feel a lot better if you know that everybody else is dealing with this stuff too, that you haven't been singled out by the universe to go through these things. And when we live in you know, we're not all in the same place, so you may feel like you're the only one that's dealing with this petty thing or that thing, this ongoing thing, and it gives you a sense of humor too, that you know, here we are. I think, I mean, I personally think we're going to get realization right in the middle of our mess, not when our mess is cleaned up. Anyway, good. I'll see all of you folks. And, you know, here's one thing I was thinking of next week. I don't know if the thought was, what intimations or foreshadowing did you have in your childhood or your early, before Baba, that indicated this life that was going to be there in your future? Do you follow? In other words, what, you know, what are some certain hints that if you had really known that one day you would have, you know, this life with Baba, was there any indication along the way? I mean, some people did. Some people had a living relationship with God, and so that led naturally to Baba. But a lot of people, I asked Balkal Churi one time, you know, did you have any idea that you would one day be one of the intimate disciples of God himself in human form, the Christ, the Avatar? He said no. He didn't have any, not only that, he didn't even believe in God. I mean, this is like incredible. I said, really? So, but most of us do have some hints or intimations that we had this destiny with Baba. I thought that might be interesting to hear. But people, you know, it could be just a feeling that there's got to be something more to life. That kind of itch, you know, there's got to be more than just this, you know. And little hints here along the way. I thought it might be kind of interesting to hear.
Yeah. I think so too. Very interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
Jeff, I wanted to comment on your saying that you think that had the feeling that we might get God realized in the midst of the mess.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of something Ken Moore said about Upasni Maharaj. He said, you know, he got God realization while he was on the stool, you know, on the toilet.
Yeah.
So you never know when it's going to strike.
Yeah. Right.
But you've got to be worthy. You may be worthy enough to go to the stool. It doesn't mean you're worthy enough for God realization.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I see Ferrisday came back here.
Oh, good.
Let's see. Let's have somebody select a number between what, 1 and 215, Ferrisday? Let's see. Is she here or she disappeared?
Oops.
Oh, there. Ferrisday. Are you there? Ah,
She seems
Oh.
to be there.
yeah. Anyway, that's all right. Let's, I guess we'll call it a day. But she does these wonderful translations of Hafiz that you can actually feel and understand. You know, it's not like some jigsaw puzzle or a crossword puzzle you're trying to figure. Anyway, much love to all of you, and
Much love.
you know,
Jai Baba.
yeah, Jai Baba.
Hey,
Jai
Baba.